This video will discuss the thesis statement for the comparative rhetorical analysis paper. Like all thesis statements, it has a lot of information packed into a small part of your paper and helps to structure your paper. To begin, let's take a look at an assignment sheet for Unit 1 because most instructors have provided a model thesis statement that you can use as the basis for your own thesis. It reads, will author X and author Y appropriately appeal to their respective audience's emotions? Author Y is more likely than author X to succeed in accomplishing the goal of getting the audience Z to change their minds about A because the writer presents herself as someone the intended readers will more readily identify with and offers evidence that her readers will find more compelling. Obviously, your thesis won't be exactly like this one, but using the model will help you frame your main claim for the CRA paper. There is clearly some information that you'll need to fill in, like author X and author Y, and you'll also need to state who the audience is for author Y and the debate topic. Then, nearly every other word in the sample thesis can be replaced with information appropriate to the articles you're writing about. Starting with the first part of the model, you should probably replace the word emotions. If pathos is not the most persuasive strategy that the authors you're writing about use. Likewise, you probably have discovered a more specific rhetorical purpose that the more successful author had after reading Chapter 2 of our textbook. You can improve upon the model by using that more specific rhetorical purpose, such as prompt action or one of the other possible rhetorical purposes instead of keeping to change their minds. And finally, you'll want to change the last part of the model, depending on the rhetorical strategies that the more successful author used. So that's right down in here. Perhaps a more successful author used her situated ethos to her advantage and wrote about her experiences in a way that would make the audience more receptive to the solution that she presents. Or perhaps a more successful author structured her argument around an anecdote, and her use of pathos would be very compelling to her audience. Regardless of how you change the model, you should change it to fit the writing task you're completing. At the top of the assignment sheet, most instructors clearly state the writing task. It's good to remind yourself of that task as you work on your thesis because your thesis is essentially a short response to that task. So let's take a look at our model and see how well it responds to the writing task. Does it compare two authors? Yes. Does it evaluate the appropriateness of both authors' rhetorical choices? Yes, and the model takes a side. Does it name the potentially more successful author's intended audience? Yes, once that's filled in, of course. Does it state the more successful author's rhetorical purpose or goal that they want to elicit from the audience? Yes. Does it use phrases such as more likely or potentially more successful? Yes, because we're not polling the audience to see their actual responses. We're analyzing these texts and evaluating them based on our analysis. Does it address the more compelling evidence for why one author was more likely successful than the other author? Yes. You can't discuss every rhetorical choice both authors make in your paper. You must select the strongest evidence to support your claim about the potentially more successful author. Okay, great. The thesis meets the writing task. The thesis is meant to guide your reader through your paper, and this means that it guides your body paragraph writing. Your body paragraphs will need to compare both authors' rhetorical choices, focusing on the best or worst rhetorical choices used by each author. Either you will discuss one author's choices in the first part of the paper and then move on to the second author, or you can organize your paper by audience response, that is, which choices by an author would the intended audience find most compelling. Don't worry too much about the number of paragraphs you have as long as they follow the rules of a paragraph, a group of similar information and evidence that is controlled by a topic sentence. In general, you will have to prove that at least one of the authors is making appropriate choices in the text, while considering their audience and whether their choices likely helps them to achieve their rhetorical purpose. Often both articles that students analyze make appropriate choices, so you don't need to bash one author to show how the other author is making better choices. Appreciating one does not mean you have to diminish the other. Instead, you'll need to consider which author made more appropriate choices that speaks to their audience's values and beliefs. This means that students often find that they need to have a paragraph at the end of the paper arguing just that, why one author made more appropriate choices. To justify your evaluation, you'll have to discuss how an audience might have responded to a rhetorical choice and why was that choice, was or was not appropriate given what you know about the audience. As you write your paper, it might be useful to review chapters 2 and 3 of Rhetorical Choices and the sample papers in the textbook. If you have any questions about your thesis or other part of your draft, the Writing Center tutors are happy to discuss it with you.